Hello and welcome to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Chris.
And I'm Swizz.
Excellent, and thanks for joining us. It is the hour is nigh, my friend, and we're getting right to the real work where the real work starts to kick in. The end of the preseason and the season's almost here, so we're actually come to answer a few of your questions out there. We've got a massive podcast lineup coming out to you over the next few days. We just did a podcast with the Centre Bounce where we discussed the top 5 rucks. And over the next few days, we're going through with a whole bunch of different content creators and discussing all the major lines and all the issues across Supercoach. So keep an eye out for all of those. But today we thought we'd get on to some of your questions. And I just wanted to get one out the way quickly because it does sort of overlap with a podcast that we're going to. So Kata, and this has actually got the most likes, which is great. Great news because we already had this one planned. But Kata said best 5 rookies sub 200K from defense, mids, and forwards. So Kata, we are actually doing a podcast specified just on this topic. We're doing that with JP, who was last year's winner, and that will be recorded tomorrow night. So look forward to that one coming through. But Swizz, do you want to get us kicked off, mate? You've got a couple there that have been sent through directly to you. We'll start there, and then we'll go through this post that we had with some questions from the community.
Yeah, okay. We'll start off. This one literally just came through there. So hot off the press from Christian, who I think's in our draft league, our keeper draft league. He's asking with Sam Mitchell talking down Cam McKenzie, saying, they've got quite a few options that they can go with. Do we have confidence that he's going to be picked round one, or at least be confident that he's going to be a viable rookie for us to start? Chris has taken off everything there. Can you hear that, mate? Did you hear that? Oh, you're going the he's got the other earphones on that. So did you hear that question, mate, at all, or did you just completely leave me?
It went blank, but we're good. We're back to it.
Okay. So I asked Christian from our podcast keeper league asked us with Sam Mitchell talking down Cam McKenzie the other day, saying there's a lot of other options that they can run through. Is McKenzie still a viable starting option, especially at his price, when there could be a risk that he could be either sub or be left out through Hawthorn's rotation?
Look, it's a valid question. I think that ultimately we'll find out for round one. Prior to that, if he's not listed in the 22 on field, you do have to question that a little bit. But from what I saw, and from what I saw from him in his junior days as well, he's much better and a much better user of the football in that role, in that position, and looked comfortable doing it against Collingwood, who are one of the more seasoned midfielders. Obviously not super defensive, but definitely got a lot of experience in that midfield. I just don't like their other options at the Hawks, and like there's guys like Warple still getting a game, who I don't rate at all, and they do have a lot of talent coming through. But I'd have to say that he's the one that has the most scope to be a premium midfielder in the future. So when I say that, I mean like you got guys like Josh Ward in there. You've got guys like Warple, as I mentioned. Are these guys going to be a really top end midfielder? Probably not. Cam McKenzie's one that's got the scope to be able to really come onto the scene out of the gate and impress. And he could be one to even rival Rising Star nominations and things like that. That's how good I think he could be and is. He's one you're going to want to have if he gets named. So I can understand if he's not on the coach's radar in that sense. But I watched an interview with Sam Mitchell after at halftime, and he was talking him up and raving about him. So I'm not as scared of that pick as I was. I think if it's me, I'm having him on my field. And worst case scenario is he's obviously can be rotated to bench, and that's why I kind of do feel that you're getting probably the 3 best rookies in the midfield are Cam McKenzie, Will Phillips, and Ashcroft. I am of the opinion that you probably start 2 of those on field and 1 from the bench. So who's that on field? Probably going to be Cam McKenzie and Ashcroft with Phillips coming off the bench. But if it turns out that rotation doesn't work for McKenzie, you could move him to the bench, etc. So I don't think he's one you're going to want to skip. So
That's where I've got no radical layer at the moment, because I've got Phillips sitting on the bench, McKenzie on, so I can swap them at any point. The only thing that makes me kind of reconsider if the him playing on a Sunday and the teams and he's an extended bench, and then I go, okay, Radaglia comes in, Davey goes as my swing and comes forward, and then Oscar Baker, after his performance the other day, now swaps around with Phillips, and Cam Mackenzie's the one that gets left out, thinking that Radaglia might have a better job security. But if I can find the cash to go all of it, for sure, because I think Cam
Yeah.
Mackenzie's definitely they're going to want to play him through some midfield. And I think that's surely Hawthorn's way this year. Josh Ward, Cam Mackenzie, a bit like GWS finally. Let's see the connection. Tom Green out to Finn Callahan there on the wing. It's kind of a bit of a free hit with them with a new coach. Sam Mitchell, showed what they could do last year with some senior players. They've moved all those senior guys on. So sure, you're going to get as much of that talent and games into them and put them in positions where they're going to learn very quickly. So I think that's surely going to be a role in there for Cam Mackenzie.
The other thing as well to note is that we say this every year. It's like, oh, the Sunday squads, you're not going to know who's in the team, blah blah. Realistically, that week before round one, all those videos go around with all the rookies, calling their mums and dads and blah blah. So we're gonna know. It's not like we're not going to know if they're actually playing. Whether or not it's a sub is the question. Of course, that will be something of conjecture, but I don't think it's going to be a mystery if he's going to be in the team or not. The other thing is they're playing Essendon, so it's not like it's a big bruising team or anything like that. You want to try and ease him in. Essendon's a team that you could play him in that starting midfield and he would be completely fine. Play him off as Zach Merritt or something like that, and just let him run around with a premium midfielder and see what sort of damage you can do against a really good opponent. I think that would be something.
Yeah, Zacky's going to get probably 40, but you can hurt him the other way. He's not really a defensive midfielder, so you just go to Cam and say, okay, maybe follow him around a bit, but at the same time, or maybe go the other way. Back yourself, go get that ball, and if you can get it 20 times, well, I would be right with you on that. So
yeah, so I think overall that we're probably in the both consensus is you probably need to have him regardless, but just keep an eye on it. And even if he's bench, he's probably going to be good enough to make you money throughout the season that you don't have to worry about it. I also think that the bench, this is an overall structure talk, I guess, but the midfield bench is really shallow. I'm finding the only way I'm filling out my midfield bench is by getting guys that are DPP, forward or defenders, because I don't like a lot of the pure mid options in the midfield on the bench. So even guys like Baker, he's probably the best of a bad bunch, but he's probably the one that's probably most inclined to be a sub out of all those. Johnson's dropped off the radar. He's probably not going to have any time in that midfield. Matty Roberts doesn't look like he's going to get any time over at Sydney. Who is the other guys? There's some small forwards that might get a shout. Darcy from GWS may get a game here or there. Or there are other guys.
A couple of taller, like Sam Sturt and Connor Stone, which are like your 190 centimeter types. Which we've already got kind of Fergus Green doing that, and he's got more experience because of his VFL and former stint in at AFL with the Bulldogs. So, but your actual midfielders and that, there's not a huge lot. So that's where I've liked Phillips at M9 because I've got more confidence there. And if something goes wrong, I'd rather swap, him, Bakes, and McKenzie around, given what their role might be that any given week, and just hope that if one does start as a sub 1 week, and that it's I've got enough time to make that swap before the game for the other one, or hopefully that one's playing after or beforehand, so I can make that swap.
And another reason to for this as well is if you're playing, say, Radaglia R3 and your loop therefore is in your midfield, so M11 loop, which is how I plan on having my starting team, is if you do get a score like a 80 plus or something from a Mackenzie or a Phillips, that you can loop them on field. So there are options to be able to do that within structures. So just advise that, that's the way you're going about it, as opposed to going, Mackenzie, it's a M7 and then Phillips at M8. Try and get one of those guys to the bench, and then you've got security in that.
Have you taken out then Madden and put in Blake Drury on that and gathering?
Yes.
Yep. Good. Interesting. I was actually going to ask that, but I might actually go there as the next question. That what is the best loop situation? Because a lot of people obviously going Madden. Some people I know have been in the thought that you don't start a loop, and that's usually my thing, thinking that one will eventually break out. But
And
then,
yeah,
does that put you too behind with the no VC or C option? And is it worth to have Madden, especially if you've got Radicalia, and then that gives you a link, and then hopefully Gorn or your DC or whoever, then you've got already that loop that will able to give you the ruck forward flexibility? Or is it
yeah.
in your case going jury and having the forward mid flexibility, or is it even maybe defensive mid? That, but I think there's probably enough defensive rookies. Do you have any thoughts if there's a better one?
Yeah, so there's three ways to go about it. So obviously starting just a regular classic R3 loop is fine. If you this is obviously you don't have to start a loop, which is what you mentioned, but I'm leaning towards starting a loop that is probably going to play later in the season. So someone like a Drury who probably won't get a game from round one, but is likely to play at some point during the season is good for me. But I can also see the benefits in not starting him so that you've got a downgrade option. So I suppose it's a bit of a way up. Someone like a Josh Sin as well, who is likely to get games, but he's probably not going to play right off the bat. I know that a lot of people went Elijah Hollands last year, and that ended up boding really well for them with his great scores right at the end of the season. So there are ways that you can go about it. That's the way that I'm leaning towards now that we've got a viable R3. If we didn't have a viable R3, but often uh, this happened for the last 2 or 3 years where we've had some great rookie rucks that have come through and scored a lot of points, made a lot of cash, and then we've been able to actually capitalize on that. And I think that we'd want to do that as we go. Where we see the opportunity to make cash, we should try and make it. For someone like a Radicalia, we should try and get them. If you're not on field, that's fine. Having him in R3 would be great. Downgrade option, you'll just sit there on your pine, maybe not do anything for you, but it'll get to 300K quite easily. And then bang, you got 200K upgrade down to a potential loop or to a potential other playing player. Um, so yeah, I do actually think that there is some other ways to be able to facilitate that. I personally, if I'm going to be running a midfield loop, I want it to be someone who's going to be playing at some point. So whether that's Drury or Sin, I like both of those options. You could also go the other thing I've thought of is someone like let's say Cowan gets named ahead of Sin Cotter round one. You could have Cowan in your defense, Sin Cotter in your loop. He could be your loop. And then, yeah, bad game from Cowan, since Sin Cotter come through, bang, goes into defense. And then you've still got a loop, but you're just switching it around. So
And
there's,
that's why I brought up defensive midfielder before, because
yeah.
all reports is they're going to go one and not both.
Mhm.
Where I think I'd rather start both, and if they're going to chop and change, at least I've got one of them in there, and then one becomes that defensive, other becomes that loophole any given week for me. So the
Yeah,
V6
beautiful.
captain's there, because I think that will be the case. The Blues probably won't play both of them. All reports is Sincotta will be the one that'll get the first start because he's the mature age guy, but I don't think Cowan will be too far away. And it could be just a case Sincotta plays 2-3, Cowan, you go back to the reserves, bang, you're in now. Sincotta, you're back out. And it might be swapping again with Ollie Davies, because Sincotta did play up on the wing the other day, where Ollie Davies, sorry, Ollie Hollands did as well. So the 162K, I think he is, Carlton rookie. So
Yep.
it could even be all three of them swapping them. They might play two, they might just play one. So I think that's definitely an option there if you're looking for something different to Madden.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you have another one
Yeah, I
there,
had
mate,
one last
before I
question,
go?
which
Yep.
was direct. I had asked me just before about, somebody else also asked me about Tyler Young from Richmond. So I don't know if I haven't had this confirmed yet, but we've been getting messages saying he's been getting confirmed for round one. I don't know if there's something put out. I'm on all the Richmond forums, haven't had anything come through there, but the 102K rookie from Richmond, who apparently, if he Tarrant or maybe even Tommy Lynch is out and Bolter plays forward and there, or but they do have a couple of injuries, especially in that Richmond backline at the moment. The rumor is that it looks like Young could be playing round one. So would we consider starting him as a super coach option? For me, I know last year we had Gipkus. Gipkus was a high draft pick. Much more confidence in him than I am for Tyler Young going forward. I guess if you're really stuck for cash, and you potentially that's where your loophole might open up and go, okay, I'm going to start this guy knowing he might only play 2, 3, 4 games, and obviously he's in there thinking from round one, so he might get more games throughout the year. But I think there's better defensive options than him, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I look at their run. Obviously Carlton round one. That's not good for a. What is he? Is he a fullback? Is he like?
Yeah, I think he's about in that weird height again. But let me just
Because I
double
mean,
check
obviously
that.
playing against
But
Charlie
he actually might
Curnow
even
and
be a
Harry
bit more.
Mackay.
He might even be a bit more taller. Because for some reason I thought he was about 193. He's 196, 97
Okay,
k's.
yeah, so he's going to play traditional, say fullback or centre back.
Yeah,
And yeah, so I mean, round one against Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow,
mature
that's
age key
not
defender.
great. And then the next week they've got Adelaide, so Tex Walker might be the matchup there. That's not a great matchup for a rookie. Round three they do play the Pies, so that's not too bad. I mean, Dan McStay's obviously
I
might
think
have his
people
way
are
with him, but
thinking
I
because it's
don't know
mature
about that.
age, but he's a key defender for a reason. I think he's just going to be that dowler. You go out there, just lock down, and he
Yeah,
probably scores 20 to 30, and
yeah,
he'd probably be the least scoring player on the field, even with maybe the sub.
yeah. I look. We also just don't have enough information. He just look. There's enough defender rookies that we don't really have to stress on it.
Mm,
And worst case scenario is you get to round three, he's got a huge break even, and you need to get him in. Okay, then we look at it. He
yeah,
could be just a rookie correction, but to me, I don't think he's one you look at this stage to lock into your teams. The worst thing you can do from a structure perspective is lock in a 102K guy early that maybe drop round two, round three, or whatever, and then you don't have the money to bring him up. He's not made you any money. You've just got to sit him at D7 for the rest of the year. Like it's happened to me before where I've had one player that just never made any money, was never able to sideways him, tried to get him out of the buys, and it ruined the whole season just from that one simple mistake. Always better start with a more expensive option if you can, especially on the bench for that reason. So,
I can see
yeah,
that.
that's
It's going to trap a few people in. I think you'll get because Richmond Carlton are usually the first game. Obviously, we get our rookies first, so people
yeah,
try to lock in on. Oh, here's a rookie, especially 102K. How can we not lock him in? So I think some will, and then come round three, you'll be like, oh, everyone's back at Richmond. Now what happens? And you never know. You might get a game or two later in the year, but it's then you're relying on he's probably sixth, seventh in the depth chart. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's the issue right there.
All right. Well,
All
we'll get
right.
on to the rest of the questions. So the first one I got here from Supercoacher is Yo versus Day. So do you want to give us your thoughts on that one as the mid price? I think ultimately not a lot of people are running two mid prices in defense, mainly because Bose has sort of dropped off the map. And I probably wouldn't call, say, Liam Jones a necessarily mid pricer, is more rookie priced. So really people are looking at that one position that they're looking at for the mid pricer. And it's generally speaking, Yo and Day are the two options everyone's talking about. What do you think about those guys?
Well, I think I sent Supercoach Twitter into meltdown when they said who was dropped out of your team from the weekend, and I said it was Elliot Yo. He is back in there at the moment because it's just the price, but I didn't think he actually looked that good. Probably looked a bit unfit still, playing defensive midfielder. I would have preferred to see him zoning off at half back. The thing is, he is still playing midfield and didn't play that much time on ground, probably just because of fitness, but hasn't done a lot wrong pre-season. So surely, like if he can still get a 78 with like 50 odd percent whatever he played on the weekend, and he's going to probably work into it. I feel like he's probably a safer option with Day. Day would be great if I knew what his role would be, but they've got so many options for the midfield. So M1's Newcomb for them, but then is it Warple? We just talked about McKenzie and Josh Ward. So you got them kind of, you got guys like Connor Nash, Connor McDonald played a little bit of lockdown and can go through there. And then McGuinness, who they clearly want to use as the tagger through there. So even if you just go Newcomb McGuinness straight off, there's two midfield spots. And that's before we've got into your warps and stuff like that. So how much midfield time is he going to get there? So that puts it probably across there. And then you've got to then go, okay, so that juicy half back roll. Well, they've got GF, Grimshaw, who else have they used over there in the past? I think Brambles took some kick
Yeah,
outs.
and he was taking kickouts again. I've
Yeah,
actually looked at Bramble as a potential mid pricer.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's actually one to watch.
Mm,
Like he could jump out the box and we could go, oh, where did all these scores from Bramble go? But
yeah,
he's had a traditionally very good scoring history in Supercoach. So yeah, one to watch Bramble. Don't write that one
definitely.
off yet. And
So
he's
there,
only just over
so
300K.
so again, I look and go, okay, Day doesn't have that great half back role. that you'd want to, and that's before even getting onto on Sicily, who's just got the monopoly down there. So where does Will Day fit in? I feel like he reminds me a bit of a better version of Connor Nash, of that who can just float and fill a lot of gaps for them. And I think that's where sort of Day goes through and say, okay, we know you can play half back. Maybe you start there, or we've had an injury, or maybe we'll give you that second midfield rotation come through there. But with mid prices, at least with Yo, as I said, I would have liked him in the juicier role of that half back flanker. That looks like Jaden Hunt's actually playing that as on top of obviously McGovern, and they've got Barras and other options as the tall options as the intercept markers. But he's still got a defined role in that midfield. And we even talk about the mid-price midfielders like your Sheeds and your Hoppers. You know where they're playing. So, but Days, I've got no confidence in Days' role, so you've got to go Yo on that. But for those people who, and I think Yo's in 50%, a lot of people are looking at trying to get Yo up to say Ridley or up to one of the primos. I really like that move if you can put the cash elsewhere and do it there. So I've got no problem if people want to fade both.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you in regards to I'm actually not 100% that I want if there was a way that I could probably get off the O pick, I probably would. What's convinced me and what I actually spoke about in my podcast earlier pod team reveal is that he's in so many teams now that it's really damaging if he goes big and you're not on him. And it's almost like, okay, I just got to have him in my team just because even if Day just happens to go better, which is I'm not sure what the percentage chances are of that. You haven't won by that much. It's not going to be, he's not going to be a lights out pick where you're going to, everyone needs Will Day. Like he's not going to average 110 over the first 5 rounds and go, oh my gosh, I need Will Day. Like that's really out of this world, left field, not going to happen. But there's a chance that Yo does burn you. And there's a chance that Yo becomes a keeper. There's a chance that Yo can go on a heater and average 105 over however many weeks. And if you're not on him and everyone else is on him, then your season's over. So the safety in numbers with Yo is probably more important than trying to have an ego pick like Day work out, especially when it's 30K more expensive. Just doesn't really work in your favor.
Yeah, and Day's highest ever score is 122. Like,
yeah,
and he scored 100 maybe twice or something in his career. Like, he's not. Yeah, I've got no confidence of, as you said, the hurt factor there. He's not coming out and going 120, 120 because he's just never done it before.
We just said that Yo didn't look that great, but I mean their PPMs, points per minute, were almost identical. So it's not like one of them is right now a much better pick than the other one. So take the safety approach. Just go with Yo just for safety purposes. If you really want the option to be able to change today, that's fine. Leave 30K in your bank and then go into round 3 and reassess. But I just don't think it's worth going through those hassle or the stress of not having him just to say that I chose Day instead of Yo. I don't think that's one that you go unique on anyway. Not my
opinion. I think it is even a couple other better options than Day. Like if the question even was Benny Long, but with Constable, if Constable wasn't playing, possibly that would have been a better conversation with him versus Yo.
Yeah.
Just because of role again. That's what it comes down to.
All right, on to the next one. So the break evens, great guys, by the way. They've got some versus picks that they want us to go through and get our thoughts on. So their first are Cogs versus Goulden. I always say Golden.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So just off the top of the head, Cogs or Goulden?
I've got Goulden.
Yep. And they've got. I also have Goulden. I actually dropped Cogs to Goulden. Wits versus English.
Wits.
I also have Wits over English. And Zeeble versus Flanders.
Zeeble.
Yeah. Just adding on that, I've also got Zeeble. We're all 3 locked on that one. We just for those playing at home, this week has been me and Swizz going back and forth, going, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And me going, "That's what I changed my team to."
Exactly. Our team is way too alike in that. It's probably why I delayed putting out my pod going, okay, is there any way I can make a change here so it's just not a carbon copy of Chris?
Right.
We talked a bit about in our Ruck's pod that'll come out with the boys from Centre Bouts, but I think English probably averages more than that, but it will probably play less games, where Wits is that safety option, and I just like the guy that I can back myself in, and he even early on could be a VC or even a C option, just because some of the matchups that especially VC round
Yep.
one, where I think Zeeble Flanders, if I knew again the role, I would have loved to see with Tukin,
Yep.
and I think he could be one that might do really well and might have to be a correction. But is it just like we've seen it before with the Suns, Rank and Darcy McPherson? They've had guys like this who have had games where they've picked up 25, 30 possessions, maybe get a goal or two, but it's never been consistent. And it's always seems to be the big three in there as it is. So
Yep.
I don't have as confidence. Where Zebra, we know, even the other day, what did he get? Was it 80 or something? But it was from like 15 possessions or
80,
something.
86 from 15 possessions,
15
including 13.
possessions. And
He only had 2 marks.
yeah.
He had 2
Yeah.
marks. That's not
So
that's uncanny.
that's right. And even more the point now is North without Ben McKay probably does alter their back line. So even if you thought maybe Core or even Griffin Lowe coming in might take some intercept marks, well, those guys, or if it's Young, they're going to have to all play lockdown. And
Yep.
Zeeble definitely is just going to be the one that's freed up to do what he wants
He's
to
the
do down
distributor.
there. So I've got a lot more
Yeah.
confidence in that.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, again, we say this about 1,000 times, but starting with the more expensive one, you can always correct down if you need to. But it's rare that we get someone with Flanders' role that just jumps out of the box. That high half forward that pushes into the midfield. You know, that's Zach Butters in a nutshell. But even he was never able to get to that really good scoring average without getting at least some sort of midfield mix. And I think last year he had somewhere between 25 to 40%. And it was just enough to just kick those, 9 scores over to that 110, 115, 120 sometimes. I just think that it's just really limiting when you're not going to be around the ball as much as you probably should be. And I know he got 30 disposals, but I can't see him be able to do that regularly in a normal season game. I don't think that 30 is going to be a common thing for him. If it is, great. And I mean, he didn't score amazing with the 30 disposals anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
what did he end up going for
Well,
those 30
Suns have
disposals?
a horror draw to start off with.
Yeah, they do.
Absolute horror draw. Like, like every kit, like there's a few
Yeah,
games in there
30.
where you go, okay, maybe, there's the North game or whatever. But to start against Sydney and Geelong in the first 3 weeks, the
Yeah,
two coming off the grand final, 3 away. I think that's in South Australia, but still obviously traveling. They've got the Tigers down in Melbourne. They've got, Melbourne as well. I think that's all in their first 7 weeks. So you could be looking at
yeah,
they're playing maybe the top 4 or 5 teams in that period. And if he's coming off the half forward flank, you got to ask questions there, going, where's he getting this this big boost in those matches and stuff? So
yeah.
I don't. I think they might even play Brisbane straight after that too. So there's another tough one. So I don't
So
compared to like Debo, who's even it's just like it doesn't matter if West Coast North Melbourne are getting smashed because Debo's going to see plenty of ball down there. But even against a team like West Coast who are lacking forwards at the moment, you think West Coast their forward entry was terrible the other day. They kick
yeah,
it in and there'll still be rebound marks in those sort of matches. So that was those two, and then Cogs. I didn't answer that, but apart from Gordon getting like massively CPA numbers through that preseason, but I still think there's an increase for him. Where Cogs was playing that more, I guess, defensive midfielder, he still won some clearances because he's still good enough. But when you've got Tom Green and Kelly in there, they're I think playing more the attacking midfielders. And I was kind of worried a little bit about Cogs' role we talked about before with Yo being that defensive midfielder. Every team's got one. But I've got more confidence with Yo doing it, or even say Setterfield, because of their price where you're still good enough to go 90 in that role, but are you going to go like 110? And that's where Cogs you price at a premium price,
yeah.
and he's still going to have a good average for a forward. But why wouldn't I just get somebody doing the same role for 200,000 cheaper?
Well, the thing with, and I'll just quickly touch on that. So, the thing with Cogs is that after the game, Kingsley actually said, "No, there's nothing wrong with him. He just had a bit of a corky, so we thought we'd take it easy with him because I think he only played like 65% time on ground or something like that." But he said we still plan to play him a lot forward. So I don't know what that split looks like, obviously, but that's not a great sign. Of the three main guys, he'll probably have less CBAs than the other two. And so I worry that he potentially may not get up to that sort of 110, which is where I valued him at early in the preseason from what he produced at the back end of last year. So I don't think he's going to be able to do that, which means I think that his price probably either hovers or drops. So to me, he's not a must-have. Now, on to Flanders, he had 30 touches for 103 SC. So yeah, that's a lot of touches. That means obviously a lot of uncontested ball. He had 7 marks in that. So he's not going to be a lights out performer because let's say he averages say somewhere between 20 to 25 touches. That means that the maximum at SC output's going to be somewhere like 80 to 85, maybe 90. It's just not conducive enough to really be a huge, like, it's not going to kill you. Whereas Zeebel's got the opportunity to be a keeper. He could be an average, 95 to 105 and just keep him for the whole year at that price. It's pretty good. All right, moving on to so there was another extension onto that, and he said, thoughts on the role Clary played wasn't good to watch, but will that stick or is it just trialing? So I'll just lead off with my thoughts because I'm pretty strong on this. I had a bit of a chat on the FTTV Discord about this. The thing with Clary, I don't hate him as a pick, by the way. I've been a big Clary person pretty much all preseason, but the club now have come out and said they want to rotate more people through there. Christian Petrarca came on and said he'll be playing forward more and there'll be some different roles for Clayton Oliver. They then roll it out through the preseason to see what that looks like. He had 22% less CBAs than his season average last year and was rolling in off the half back. So there's 3 pieces of evidence that suggest that Clary's role is not going to be exactly what Clary's role was last year. So at 700K, we run the risk of not believing anything that they've actually, the club and everyone has said and shown, but we're just going on blind faith that, no, he'll be right. And I just go, well, maybe. And there is a chance that, yep, maybe that is nothing to worry about at all. And he goes in along and averages 130. Or maybe we just ease off a little bit, wait and see. And then, if we need to readjust, we readjust at round 3 or further into the season. I just don't think it's really the best solution to be running Clary, especially if it's just Clary and not Laird. I can understand if you're doing both, because then you're sort of protected regardless. You can roll off to round 3. You get to round 3 and you go, okay, Clary down to Neil or Clary down to McRae or Steele or whatever, whoever's going crazy. You've got an option there because you can always just jump off in round 3. But if you're just going Clary, then you've only really got one option then to go Clary to Laird or whatever it may be. And I just don't love that as an option. I'd rather be on Laird or on both and not on Clary alone. So that's just my opinion. But I'm getting shut down for it all the time. So you take over the floor.
No, I don't. I've always said you need one or the other because they're the best captain options. But clearly Melbourne, now it probably changed a little bit because of Vining's injury. But still, there's a clear thought there for Melbourne that they, the hard thing with them last year, they're like round 10, they were unbackable for the premiership because everything they were doing. But you're always getting, watched and dissected by every other team out there. And then what ended up happening is, teams have had enough time to then, a lot of these assistant coaches, because remember, coaches work, 70 to 100 hours a week, ridiculous amount of time that they go putting through opposition. So Melbourne's the team you've got to dissect. And you look through it and go, okay, it was Gawn. Kind of everyone knew sort of what Jackson's role was. And then it was Oliver, Petrarca, and then Viney in there with Brayshaw, more that halfback role that could push up on the wing and stuff. So you could actually see, you knew what Melbourne was doing. So if you had the right talent on there who could, follow the game plan you wanted, you could put Melbourne in a way where you could stop their influence and that. And that might have been by putting more pressure on the forwards, they were kicking to, or might put more pressure around the ball or whatever. They became a very predictable team. Now that they're obviously trying to get Pickett up the ground, because Pickett offers a bit different than that. So even if it's Pickett goes from, I don't know what his percentage last year, but it was really low CBAs, but you might increase him to 20%. It's something different there through that. You could see the Grundy and Gawn both starting in that midfield and then go, okay, Grundy, you're going to play this, 5%, 10% as a non-baller. But I feel like Melbourne are going to change things different to make other coaches think, oh, hang on, they could throw anything at us at any time. And that's going to obviously help with their premiership tilt. So Oliver, yes, his best position is around the ball, and they'll want him around there as much as possible. But we've never actually seen Clary do like what Bont does and go up forward, or start off on a wing like McRae did, but still push in and around the contest. So maybe he loses a tagger, or maybe it's just something that an opposition haven't thought of. So I think Melbourne have the ability to win enough games where they can control some of this stuff through season. And I think that's where, it might be like we were talking with McRae. It might be a case where it's only 5% or 10% CBAs, but that could be enough to put his score down 5-10 points. And that where that 120 to 130 becomes a 115 to 120 guy.
That's pretty much where I sit with it. I don't think his changing is that much that's going to be like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a bad pick.
No,
but he drops down to 600K at that if he goes down to 115, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is like, then I can pick him up at a reasonable price and save myself 100K off the starting price. The other thing I wanted to quickly just mention there as well, in regards to Melbourne, I don't know if you saw a recent Dale Thomas was chatting on radio on the listener app, and he mentioned that they mentioned on the one of their Triple M broadcasts or whatever, that he picked out that Stephen May last year, every time that they were at one end of the ground, they would kick to a certain side, and every time they were at the other end of the ground, they'd kick to the other certain side. And he said, yeah, he announced it in round 10, and then they started losing after that, and he thinks that he's to blame for Melbourne not winning the premiership last year, because opposition coaches worked out how to play them from defense. But that's true. They are the most predictable team from fullback of all time. They just go to the corners on one of each side, but they could even tell which side they were going based on which end they were starting at. Yeah. So that's pretty crazy.
But and there was no reason for them not to just back the talent that they had in. That we're going to win the game.
Create a contest.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
But these coaches are, they get paid a lot of money because they spend a lot of hours dissecting teams. This is what they get paid for, and they have a ton of assistants around them doing this as well. So that's where now I think Goodwin's gone. We've got players on the list here. Like Melbourne have one of the better squads going around, especially a better 22, a few underrated players on there, where they can be a bit more flexible. I don't need to go like full Bevo like the Bulldogs do.
Yeah.
And, start playing like, Caleb Daniel and the Ruck or something like that. But they've got enough talent in that squad where they can go, okay, maybe this bounce it's Petrarca with Pickett and Grundy starting as on the on-ballers, and let's just see maybe Oliver, like Carlton did a couple of times last year. Sam Walsh started at half forward flank and rolled up straight away. And that, so what's the match? Claring then gets D6 on him at that centre bounce and rolls up. Well, it throws a different dynamic, and I was like, oh my god, now they've how do we match that up? So I think we'll see a bit of that from Melbourne, especially early on. And maybe through the big games when they're playing New Geelongs and Brisbane's and that, we'll get the more traditional Clary track Viney for those matches. But
what it does is it confuses matchups. Obviously, it gives them a different angle to throw at them. I mean, Geelong did this again. It's all based on what Geelong has been doing to be able to keep their list as good as they could possibly do during the season. So by the time they get to the finals, everybody's fresh, everyone's good, and you don't know what sort of centre bounce mix you're going to get. It makes it hard for opposition coaches. Yeah, how do they do this? If Blitzarves goes here, what do we do
Geelong
with that?
beat us really in that they were 3 goals behind us and put Jeremy Cameron in the midfield and turned the game. So that's the sort of stuff where we're talking about with Barry Grundy. So to answer that question, I think it's led. I don't mind the Neil pick that some people are going with, because we know he has hot starts as well, and might be that's one way. The obvious one would have been Took. I know some people still want to get on him. I just don't like picking people who have had soft tissue injuries through preseason.
Yeah,
it's just my biggest no in fantasy sports, and especially like Supercoach. It's just not just saying he was fit as a fiddle and looked really good, but you are playing with a little bit of fire with that. Where Neil next to Dunkley. I don't think Neil is going to average more, but definitely can maintain his average and be still that good captaincy option.
Yeah. So I like it. All right, let's move on to the next question. We've got a few here that sort of double up, and I'll just run through some. So Nelson Moody, I think this is a great option for a podcast, and we should probably do one.
I'll just give it out a shout out now. I used to work with him. Great bloke.
Thanks nice. He just said would love each of us to rate each other's teams, which would be, I think, a great little pod. Unfortunately, our teams would be identical. So
we're all identical. So
it's the best team ever.
Looks awesome.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. We got another one from Supercoach Potato that obviously asked, should we downgrade Cogs to Goulden? So we've already touched on that one. The fiddler actually said that he went with Taranto out instead. So I'd like to touch on that because I did a little bit of a deep dive, probably a little bit too much of a deep dive. I tend to get real involved with statistics. Um, and Taranto, I think, is a guy that he's just going to find the ball regardless of what he's going to be able to do. I mean, we saw that in the weekend just from the pure fact that he had 8 marks. And I don't remember the last time I saw a Richmond midfielder take 8 marks in a game of football. So he's going to be able to find the pill regardless. And that sort of scares me a little bit in regards to his scoring potential because I was of the opinion that um, the way that Richmond play, they have a lower ruck contest than virtually most of the other competition and a lot less than GWS have over the last few years, which leads me to believe that Taranto's scoring output could drop. But I just think that he's just good enough to find the pill. So it's not going to really matter anyway. And he gets enough uncontested ball that he's going to be able to float around that 105 average, regardless of who he's playing for. But if you're picking him to be like a 110 averaging player, that's not going to happen. So I don't think that he's necessarily going to destroy you on price or price you out or anything like that. But he's one that is going to be a solid return on investment. Whereas Goulden could, if he gets a really good role, like 50% plus CBAs and goes crazy, he's one that could really rise out of the gates and be priced 550k plus within the first 5 weeks. So just one to watch. What would I do? I'm trying to get them both in. But if I have to squeeze at this point, I'm probably going Gordon for hurt factor.
Yeah, I've
Um,
got I've got Timmy. Naturally, both of them in. I think it's a case of we haven't had also those kind of midfielders for a while. You know,
yep,
Cochin played very different. Dusty again's very different. So now that's Hopper Taranto in there. I think both of them. We just kind of change how we've been playing and that
yep,
because you can only really coach with what the sort of resources you have. And now that we've got that, and Nank's probably in his prime as a ruck. So I think Richmond do play a different way with both of them in. So yeah, in a perfect world, you kind of want both. I I know there's a lot of discussion this week because of what Gordon does and what could he back that up, but I think you've got to also consider Dunn's first week and then into Hawthorn week 2. Like Goulden, I don't want to not start Goulden with them playing the Hawks at home round 2. And if he was to get 30, 40, 50% CBAs, yeah, we've seen that he can now go the massive score. Now, I don't think that might be the case, but he could still go 100, 110, 115. And
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
he could also get tagged, which is just phenomenal, right? Like
yeah,
that's
that's
just
right. They could send him
crazy.
again. But the problem is then if Mills is back,
Warner,
Warner,
Mills,
that they've
Parker,
actually got other options where it doesn't have to be him
yep,
tagged. So
Blakey.
yeah,
They've been,
it could that could be a real interesting matchup. And yeah, if he gets locked down and that and you haven't started him, awesome, well done to you. But on the flip side, if Goulden goes out and does what he did against Carlton and he gets a massive 150 plus score, especially in round 2 against the Hawks, where that's in his cycle, then for the next 3 weeks,
yeah,
yeah,
dangerous.
you're gonna be doing that correction trade that week, and it might. And then how do you? The only way you're getting that 480 forward in is by downgrading another premium.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So Don's 2000's just gone asked us about team structure. So mid price in various lines as opposed to rookies in each line. So I might leave this one off because I think this one's pretty basic. But structure wise, like I said in defense, I think there's room for one mid pricer there or none. I think you could probably get away with none depending on how you've used your money. What I've noticed, there's obviously no mid prices pretty much in the ruck line. So if you're going one there and then none in your rack line, the only real spots this year seem to be midfield or forward. Now, a lot of the forward lines are 4 premiums deep. Doesn't really allow much scope for mid prices in those sort of setups, especially when a lot of people are spending up in midfield to get your real Uber premiums. So, but in my opinion, where I'm trying to sort of sacrificing this stage in structure is I'm sacrificing those bigger premiums in midfield to try and put in those extra mid prices to try and maximize on field points. So, structure wise, in from a mid price perspective, I'm kind of loading up in midfield and a little bit in the forward. I'm actually going really, I don't have any on field rookies right now in my forward line. I've got F5 and F6. I've got Zeeble and Bruin at the moment. So yeah, and for the reason that none of the real on-field forwards rookies, I don't. There's nothing really shouting out to me going, I need to be on field. Maybe Radaglia if at F6 is probably the only one. McLean's dropped off the map. Philippou plays far deep forward. You got Green there, but key forward for arguably what bottom four team, etc. I'm not in love with any of those sort of on-field rookies. And there's some quite decent mid rookies as well. So I wanted to have them on field. So even though there's 8 spots, kind of running out of room to fit these guys in. So for me, one maximum in defense. You could potentially squeeze 2 in the forwards, and then maybe 2 in midfield if you can do it. I think that's probably a good mix. But what about you, mate? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I agree, because I look at Finn Callaghan and Liam Jones as your real expensive top line rookies.
Yeah.
Because they're under 250k. So for me, it's Yo at the moment. I've tinkered with putting Zeeble sort of down and then Yo up to like a Dawson, but to do that to fund the cash, then I've got to drop another mid price, or I've got to drop Wicks down to Darcy, and then it starts getting messy too much with my team. But yeah, I think it's one, if you don't, depending on, because I've seen some people go 2 or 3 deep with the Ubers in defense, but I think a lot of people are preferring, say, Yo at D3. I think maybe it's a bit too thin if you have him at D2, but like I wouldn't be running Yo and Day or something like that. I think it's you have one down there. I don't care if it's Day or Long or whatever, but yeah, you got the one. The forward line, I'm like you. I've got Zeeble and Fife. Fife's the same price as Tanner Bruin anyway.
Same.
So it's the same, because I don't like the forward rookies at all. So where I'm looking at other people sharing teams with me and they've got Philippou or Shees or stuff like that, I'm much more comfortable having guys who could become premiums, keepers for me throughout the year, which we think Zeeble probably could in defence when he gets the round 6 dual position, which he will, and then be it Tanner or Fife or somebody in that I've seen Horn Francis, whatever. I think they're much more reliable options for you, because the role and the proven scoring, especially a Fife. In my case, with Tanner, with the role that he's got, it did definitely fit in that structure a lot better. And then the midfielders, like I know a lot of people saying, "I know you got to start Jack Steele," or you're looking at like McRae because he's proven and whatever. But then for me, at the moment, Setterfield in there because of the fixture that he's got coming up. So I've got confidence that with that fixture, he could probably go 90, 95. He's done it, in patches before. He even had 1 year at GWS, which I think he did that throughout the whole season. So how many points is that off really for an Uber premium? Like, you're talking 20, 25 points at most there for a guy, 300. Like even for me to get him up to Neil, I've got to find 330,000 just to match up, which is completely them butchering my side to do that. So I think 2 in the midfield with, be it Setterfield. Well, most people are going to have Hopper. Some people might not, but let's just say everyone's got Hopper. So then you're looking at it's either, Setterfield, Warple, Sheed. So it's one of probably those 3, unless then you're starting, say, Horn Francis, for example, in your midfield to push him forward or whatever.
And I've looked at options like that. I think it's underrated how good the Zeeble pick is, because that round 6, especially if you're going light in defense, all of a sudden it just beefs up there, and your forward line will likely evolve over time by round 6 anyway. So you actually open up a spot, because let's say Max Gawn gets DPP round 6. Oh, well, bang, I can just put Zeeble back into defense. Gawn comes into my forward line, bang. That's an amazing
That's the question
facility.
I've been getting a lot when people are looking, like when I've been talking about my team. What happens if Track or Bailey Smith, Gawn, Grundy, whoever gets that, because your midfield's full? And it's like, well, whichever defender I have that's hit the bubble, then they're out, Zeeble's in, and that's my cash there. And hopefully that'll be one of the early premiums that I'll be chasing to put into that forward mix. So that's where because people are like, oh, you're filling your spots. Well, be it Bruin or like if they come off, fantastic. But we're not really thinking they're going to be probably keeping here. In a perfect world, we'd love to get them to the mid-buy. But Zeeble, on the other hand, could definitely be a D6 just because he's done it before. So it's not actually taking up a forward spot, someone like him.
Yeah.
And then the midfield rookies, yeah, again, like, yeah, I don't care. I think everybody, they've all got upside and they've all got cons about them as well. But yeah, I think there's definitely a world for two of them. I've seen some
Yeah.
people trying to run none, but then this is where it comes down, going, okay, now you're banking on McKenzie, Phillips. Some have even got Oscar Baker because of the score he had on the weekend on field. Do you really want to be running those guys at, sort of M7, M8 when, we might be running Ashcroft at M8 first year
Yeah.
there and then you'll be going, okay, yes, you do have the uber premium scorers, but if they're only going, and we talked about before, maybe Clary only starts the year at a 115, 120, and you've got people with Hopper and Setterfield and Warple who may go 90 to 100 in that period. You're only getting an extra 20 points, paying for an extra 300k for it. So that's where
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you probably need the two.
There's also something to be said. I was chatting to JP 2 days ago, I think, and he mentioned that from his lineup last year, JP was the winner last year. He actually started 8 mid prices last year. Now, this bodes into it's obviously very structure related talk, but with the extra trades and the boost and etc., he didn't have any sort of special team. But what he did is he traded very well very early, which set himself up. So his team wasn't amazing, but from those 8 mid prices, 5 of them ended up being keepers. So starting guys like Wits obviously helped, Cripps obviously helped. I think everyone had Brody and Cogs, which obviously helped. But if I'm looking at my team and thinking, okay, I want to be aggressive and I want to trade into the right guys very early, the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I've got the flexibility of a mid pricer to be able to be, I don't need you. I'm just going to trade you out. I'm gonna down one, down up, and go get Clary because Clary's a must have. I'm gonna go get Stewart because Stewart's a must have now, but I can do that because I don't care about who I've got in my team. And the other thing that he realized is that from his starting team, he only had 8 premiums that were premiums at the start, and he had in his final team. So you don't, as long as you hit those right 8 guys, and then you have the right mix and have the forward thinking and flexibility to change around your team and be flexible. That's what's unfortunately something like a guns and rookies structure really sort of handcuffs you. Because if you get the wrong mix early with guns and rookies, you're running behind the whole season because you don't want to trade out your premiums. You don't want to, you want to wait until your rookies make enough cash. Whereas uh, week 4, I could be like, look, I've only made 20K out of Zeeble, but he's a shit pick, and I need to get off it. So I'm just going to downgrade him now, grab 200K, and go straight to a premium that's undervalued and overperforming. You can make those decisions on the fly when you've got these mid prices. So I think it's important to remember that when you're setting up your team. And with this year, obviously more than most, there isn't a lot of mid price defenders or anything like that. So take the mid priced options where they are. I think that's probably our point there.
Yeah,
Um,
I've had the same discussions with Abdul, the crazy
yeah,
man of Supercoach and that, but that's exactly what he had. He had your Tom Greens and whatever in the midfield and stuff. So I can't remember exactly how many mid prices he had, but yeah, definitely was very aggressive of that. So aggressive he ran out of trades where JP didn't. But yeah, that's where they've sort of gone with going that strategy, going, I can have guys in there, and then if you get the right one like he did, for example, Tom Green last year, who he traded out at the right time. But you don't, at least with mid prices, we are going in there going, okay, this guy doesn't need to be a season keeper for me. I'm
no,
hoping
I'm happy to trade him. Yeah,
I'm hoping to pick Setterfield on the fact that Essendon's fixture, Caldwell's got a knee soreness, maybe a longer term knee injury and that, which I don't wish that on anyone. Parrish had his calf iced up after the game. So there might be something there. So I'm backing somebody well like that who, well, with the maybe things all going well, why can't he come out and be their second best midfielder and average 100 during that period? And all of a sudden, that gap between him and a big premium, it's really closed, and that's where like Abdul got lucky with the Tom Green pick last year. So
yeah,
that's where you start looking at these decisions where, yeah, like we talked about, like Ben's been in that situation. I think he had Whitfield last year. And because he's that premium, just mentally, he's like, no, I can't trade him out. I can't trade him out. And that where, if it is a mid price, it's so much easier mentally just to go, yeah, I'm going to fling this guy off to the either the best scoring rookie or another mid pricer who's flying.
and I mean, you just look at say Clary for example. His last 2 scores against the Bulldogs, who's obviously his round 1 opponent, is 96 and 112. Like he's got a 2 game average of 104 against them. If he does that, and then backs up with another poor game, and Setterfield comes out and goes 100. How pissed would you be owning Clary paying 700K for him, but Setterfield's gone 340? Yeah, the same price for 350K. So, yeah, peace of mind. Moving on to the next question. So,
Just a random one. This is live and that, so I've got my Supercoach draft there, mate. It's my pick, and we are just talking about that Zeeble versus Horn Francis. I think I'll go get Zeeble at pick 104.
yeah, you will.
Thank you very much for leaving that, guys.
Nice. All right, so Damien Ford says, is Asava an option at R2 if you aren't running a Cameron-like player in your forward line for ruck swing cover? I liked the Asava ruck 2 when we had McAndrew as he's going to be playing. You had a third option there from a ruck rookie perspective. I'm not sure you can run Cameron at the moment. I just don't like.
I'm
talking about running not Cameron, in love with it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Reddit. Asava at R2.
Yeah, Radical. Okay, yeah. So Rad R2 if you've got Cameron in your forward line. The thing with the Cameron in your forward line is he blocks other options. So he blocks mid prices. He blocks the 4 premiums that everyone's got. And, you still got even guys like Cunnington there. Like there's a lot of guys that are potentially going to go better than him. So having him there just to cover, I just don't love as an idea. If you're just doing it to save cash, I'm not really, I'm just not sold on that.
So I played around with it. I did because I was like, what does it look like? How does this formulate? Like we were talking about the idea about Darcy Cameron being a really nice F7 R3 going through as a backup. So in case where, like we talked about Abdul last year where he ran out of trades with about 4 or 5 weeks to go, if he's got that situation with DC sitting there and you get the 1 week injury, well, it's fine because you've got somebody like DC who can score between 90 and 100 come in and your team's not affected. The problem is we're all expecting Gawn, maybe even Grundy, pick up dual position. So you're going to have a guy in your forward line potentially who can cover your rucks if you get the 1 week injury anyway. So what Darcy Cameron's value because of that drops off dramatically.
Yeah.
The only other one that I've had questions about is my thoughts on, say, Jamison from West Coast. Now, if I knew Nick Nat had a long-term injury and it's just not this Achilles that could, he might be right for a couple of weeks and then may miss one or whatever, then it might have been a different story because it's like, okay, I don't like Jamison and he's scoring, but maybe as an R2 or maybe as an R3 as a backup to Regalia and swap them around with maybe McAndrew in the forward line at F7. So you could play around with different rucks each week and maybe get the right matchup and where the possibility they could all make cash and make 100, 150,000. Yeah, sure. No problems with that. But unfortunately, we don't have that situation. So what happens if Radigalia gets dropped? What happens if, he's only scoring 50s? What do you do there with your ruck? Now you've got to actually trade out one of your premiums to get one of the other guys in. Or as we said before, you're going to have Darcy Cameron, which you're going to pretty well have to keep there because I think he still scores well enough where you're not going to probably trade him out. But then what happens when we get that extra dual position player? And if you are starting DC in your forward line over Goulden or Cunnington, you're probably 5 points behind everyone else each week. And then the only good thing about it is you are hoping for an injury in rounds 1 to 5 or round 1 to 6.
Where you actually gain.
Happens because after that, everyone's probably going to have Gawn anyway if he picks it up, and they're going to have the ruck cover as it is. So,
and what we also find is that early injuries don't really matter anyway because people just trade around it. So it doesn't really impact your scoring. So you're not really going to get a lift on other people. It was a good look. We both dabbled in it. It was a good idea for a little bit. Lost momentum about a week ago, and that's I think where it's left, unfortunately. Moving on. So Nathan Harris has said he's got 3 questions in a row. So he said run with English in R1, Sick Dog still a lock, and Callaghan a must. So first off, I think we're both on the Wits train. At the moment, I could still be persuaded into English at R1. I'm not in love with the pick though. Like it's not. I think now with the Laddams news, I haven't shifted out of Wits since I realized Laddam's going to be the round 1 ruck against Wits. I can't get off that for whatever reason. And of course, English's first rucks are Gawn and Grundy. Like it could not be worse for. I know it's not all about round 1, but that just really turns me off wanting to start him. I like having a fire in round one. Sick dog.
Like he did well last year against against Gorn, but it was just Gorn Jackson. That it's not this time. It is Gorn and Grundy, which
Yeah.
is where Wits. It's likely to be Ladhams. If it's not Ladhams, it's McAndrew. Like either
Yeah.
way, it's the perfect start for him. And who have Freo got? Like I think they've got St Kilda, so Marshall. It's not a great start, and we know it's a 23-24 week season, so it's not about just the one round there. But, if English comes out and only goes like a 90 first up and Wits has gone absolutely berserk, already that's 60 sort of points behind, somebody who's only 20K more expensive. And now you need English over those next 10 weeks to average 5 points better just to catch Wits. And that's kind of my thinking on it with that.
So with Sicily, I never thought he was a lock. I thought he was always a good option. But just because obviously his high price, I think that the Hawks are a lot worse this year than they were last year, which you can read two things into that. So last year he averaged 118 in losses. However, I thought they were a lot more competitive. Now, does that mean, yeah, even though they're getting, they're losing, they might only be losing by 2 goals or 4 goals. Now they're getting spanked by 6 or 12 goals. What happens with Sicily in that sort of realm? Is he still going to average you 118, or is that just really diminish? The pie goes down through the crapper. I'm not really entirely sure. I don't think he's a bad option. I just don't think he's an awesome option. And so for me, I've never had him as a lock. I think if you're only choosing one or two, then to me, I really like Doherty and Dawson. Those have been my two stalwarts at the moment. Then I'd probably go Sicily, then Stewart, and then I'd probably go last Sinclair, just because I still don't know. And we didn't get any more information on how they're going to use Sinclair. I still think Ross Lyon's still trying to work out how he wants to use Sinclair.
I think they had a faster ball movement through there. What's going to hurt Sinclair is now they've got Nasiah Wangareen Malira down taking kickouts and a bigger role down there. So that's naturally going to impact on Sinclair's scoring. So where I was pretty high on Sinclair when I first thought Ross Lyon, slow ball movement, it was completely opposite with that. Where for me, like I've still got Sicily as the number one defender, but I don't think there's a big gap with him, Dawson, Doherty, and Stewart. I'm a bit with you. There was some games last year where Sicily, and I didn't own him, so maybe a little bit of FOMO there, but he would have a poor first half, pretty well like again what he did against Collingwood, and have a massive second half. Now, again, that Collingwood Hawthorn game was close. Last year, like Geelong, like he had a massive score there. I think he scored about 140, 142, something like that. But that game was right down to the wire again, so his intercept marks have a lot more weighting than if they are going to be 10 goals down. So him having that massive 50, 60 point quarter is going to be more difficult if they aren't being as competitive. So is it the Hawthorn we're going to get that played Geelong, or is it the Hawthorn we got when we're going to play against Collingwood? And that's going to affect some of his, if he's only on 30, 40 at half time and they're already down by 6 goals, well, he's not having a 50, 60 point quarter if he's just starting off intercepting because they're not going to be worth as many points. So that's just something to take into account. I still think he's going to be up there. And as I said,
he's not going to be a bad option.
I've got him as number one because I still think he takes kick-outs. If he doesn't kick out, they kick to him. He's going to still get plenty of ball down there. But I think the difference between maybe him, Dawson, and Doherty is barely anything. And I think that probably Dawson and Doherty have the better start to the year.
Yeah.
So why am I paying extra 20K for two players that I can pick up who I think are all going to average around that 110 mark flat? And I think Stewart's pretty well the same. Stewart has a great average at the MCG. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's not playing at Geelong. His average at the MCG is just as good. But they do have quite a few early interstate games and that. And it showed on the weekend that 91, that's usually what he is in interstate matches, that 90 to 100 sort of guy. So I'm happy to fade him for now, even though he can put the big score in. Because, I really want him in that period when he's playing Geelong games.
I mean, if I just look at the fixture run, so part of the reason I like Stewart is because in round 4 and 6 they play Sydney and Hawks, who've both tagged him in the past, and I think that probably continues with Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
But with Doherty, round one they play obviously Richmond,
He
and
goes 140
Richmond will
kickers
just
every time.
Richmond will just let halfbacks do whatever they want. They don't
Yep.
care, right?
Yep.
Then they play Geelong, obviously a harder game, but then it's GWS, North, Adelaide, Saints, Eagles, all in a row. I want to be on a Carlton player. Like I don't care if he's playing midfield, I don't care if he's playing halfback. I think you just got to have one of them, right?
I considered George Hewitt as one of my premium
Yeah,
needs that, but I'm like, oh, what? I'm only going really 2 with Tommy Green. How can I do that? And is Hewitt really going to be top 8? Like I still think he's like I've been getting him and Will Brady in a lot of drafts because I absolutely love it. But yeah, those Carlton mids and even Doherty during that time are just going to have a fantastic 4 to 6 week period. And I would have loved to pick Paddy Cripps. I don't have any
yeah.
problem with people thinking about him. But yeah, I think Doherty with that fixture,
What actually
he could be
happens?
120 during that time.
Well, what happens that we find in fantasy sports is that if you're on the pick that goes big for a while, that's great, and then people are trying to get on as that pick starts to fade, and so you might already have them, and you've already gained that benefit of having those picks. They come on board and they're averaging 10 points less per game for the rest of the season. They haven't averaged you 120 or 115. They've averaged you 105, and it's been an okay pick, but you've paid up for them. So yeah, that's sort of what I
Yeah,
want to do. I want to get on the
that's how
guys that are going to
I
have hot starts.
like because obviously I had a really slow start in Supercoach last year. It was about 13,000 coming into that buy, but jumping on Himmelberg and Sinclair, those guys when I did, like probably 2 weeks before everyone else did, and all
Yep.
of a sudden, yeah, that's the thing. Everybody else tried. Well, not everybody else did jump on, but other people tried to jump on, and you're already 2 weeks ahead of them, and that's where you've caught up those points. So that's what I'm thinking with Doherty. So at the moment, I'm Doherty Ridley, but I really would like Dawson. Dawson's been in my side pretty well the entire preseason. I think as
Yeah.
captain, and there's still the difference I've said before. Sicily, everyone's always thought he's a bit of a selfish player, gives away stupid free kicks, gets suspended, all that. So there's a part of me that thinks he has to be a little bit more unselfish. That's the sort of part of his game where he needs to be a better leader. Where Dawson, you make somebody a captain that's only been at your club for 1 year when you've already got Dodie and other players that you would expect to be named captain. There's a lot of question marks and there's a lot of proving that they've gone with the right person here. So Dawson's been a really good player over the last couple of years as a halfback, sort of as he floats up to that wing. But I think Dawson actually has to show from a individual point of view that no, I am the right player for this. And I think I hate using American terms, but he is going to be a quarterback. Everything's going to go through him, and if they're not putting it through him, he's going to make sure it goes through him. So I think he's in the same boat where he's probably going to have the hot start, not as hot as Doherty, but he's going to be definitely up on his last year's average, at least for the first few weeks.
Yeah. I agree with that. And so last one that Nathan Harris had was Callaghan a must. And I have to say that he's probably not a must, but he's also one that if he fits into your structure, then great. Um, I'm wary about starting someone like Callaghan and Flanders because I think that probably one of them goes and has a good run. Callaghan, sorry, Callahan. I'm
Callahan, yeah,
sorry,
you're
whatever.
right. I knew who
Um,
you meant, Finn.
he looked like a man running around. The guy's 6'3". He's faster than everyone. He's bigger than everyone. He's more skilled than everyone. And I'm not sure how they're going to opposition teams are going to approach him. Now, unfortunately, he didn't have the role in terms of an inside role. He was exclusively used as a wingman and now flagged completely as a wingman. So neither him nor Flanders have the role. So I don't think is a must because wingers, what we know is 1 week he goes 110, the next week he might go 60. And so for that reason, he's not a must have. If you had an inside role at that price with that skill level, then I'd be like, yep, absolutely. Like you have to have him. You can't not have him. But no, I don't think he's a must have. I think he's one that is more of a luxury pick if you've got the extra cash. And someone that I'm on at the moment, but I don't expect, if I had to move him, I wouldn't be upset with him. And if by round 3 I had to move him, I wouldn't be upset with that.
Yeah, I've been much bigger on him, and probably only times that he's come out of my side is because I've needed to put cash elsewhere. But he's the one that I've pretty well had locked in at M6 nearly the entire preseason. And the main thing I think is with Kingsley coming in, it's a fresh start. Who are that GWS can't be in this position where they keep losing these young gun midfielders out of their side. So who's their best two going forward? Tom Green and Finn Callaghan. And though Callahan's more suited for that wing role, so many times it was, Tom Green fire the ball out, Callahan's running by,
Oh yeah,
and I
it was
think
beautiful to watch.
that's what they want. It's let's get games into these two. They're going to be our pair hopefully for the next 10 years together. Tommy Green's just signed up to his free agency. They'll hope Callahan will do the same. So I think they were going to that's his wing role for the season.
Yeah,
And he's shown that he's got the ability to he he can. But what I really like from the game, he keeps his width as a wingman, and that so he's still got the ability to get in there and get the ball if he needs to. But so many times, like you watch the other wingman get sucked in, and he just kept that extra 15 meters. And then when they have, when you got Kelly Canelio Green winning the ball for you, and he's in that already that 10, 15 meters of space, bang, straight onto that foot. He's such a beautiful kick, and he's hitting up Hogan up on the lead and that. So yeah, as you said, there'll be games where he'll go lower, but I think that he'll definitely throw in some nice scores this year. And at 244, a guy that potentially can score 110s, 120s. Yeah, I'm all about.
fair enough. I respect that. Now, I suppose coupled with that, we could probably ask this one as well. So, PC Superstar has just said, "What do you think of Lockie Ash? Killed on the weekend, beautiful kick, high draft pick, blah blah blah." And look, he's not a terrible option to be completely honest. I think he just gets overshadowed in the mid price of chats. He's about the same price as Hopper and Setterfield and Sheed and all those guys. The benefit that he has is obviously he will likely get defender status as well. So he's one that opens up a midfield spot in round 6, likely. This is all dependent on the fact that he stays at that halfback role. Now, what we've seen in the past is that I think he averaged 89 or just shy of 90 in that role. So it is enough of a sample size to be like, okay, well, if he does average 90, great. That's pretty great from a guy at 330k. It's probably enough. Is he going to be a breakout option that will be a keeper? Probably not. He doesn't. I don't think he has that scope playing in defence to be able to do that, especially when you've also got Cumming down there and obviously Whitfield. But all three of those guys scored pretty well, and it'll be interesting to see how teams approach this now. Run and gun from halfback that they're obviously approaching, which has been the MO of Richmond, and it looks like it's going to be that coming out of GWS with now Kingsley at the helm, who's obviously from the Richmond farm. Um, and so what we generally see is that maybe one pops up as that really premium user, while the other two might be saying that sort of 90s range. And if you think right now, you've got Vlosten, you've got Rioli, obviously at Richmond. And if Short was to drop back there, he would be that one guy. Typically, that one guy is going to be the guy that is taking most of the kickouts. So we weren't really able to identify that. Obviously, Whitfield had quite a few, but then they also did share it around with the other guys. I'd like to know who that is before, say, locking in. Ash was to get more kickouts, but they just sort of let him do whatever they wanted. And I was kind of a little bit shocked that that run from half back was not even, I think in a normal AFL game, that's a bit shut down. I can't imagine them just letting those guys just do whatever they wanted, which is what happened on the weekend. So
Yeah, I think
I don't hate it, but
still Whitfield's the one that's going to get more attention.
yes.
If there was an injury to Whitfield or coming, I would be all over this pick. And that
Oh,
problem is I don't like the fact that it's three of them. And we've seen that with Richmond. All three guys can average quite well. Even we talk about with Fremantle, where, it could be Young one week and Ryan, and then they got, Driscoll, and there's options coming out. And every week a different one fires. So if Lockie Ash comes out and scores a 120 or 130, one of those 3 or 4 games early in the season, it would not shock me. But then in those games, I'm expecting Whitfield's probably only going 70 or, and so is Isaac Cumming. And then the next week, it's probably the opposite.
yep.
So I think, it's not a terrible pick and that. And there's definitely, he's one of those guys that, he will look at and go, he made 120K, 130K in that. And, he made some reasonable cash, and well done to those who probably did jump on him and that. But again, I just think there's too many cooks in the kitchen where, for example, we were talking about before with Finn Callaghan, he is their attacking wingman now. And I think Perryman, is dropped into that defensive wingman where, if it was just, if Whitfield just wasn't there, or if he was struggling with injury like he was last year, I'd be like, get on Lucky Ash as a mid-pricer. Fantastic role, but just one too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, but I'm not against it.
No, I'm not against it
I'm
at
not
all.
taking that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Another mid pricer. So lots of mid pricer chat. So
love it.
what do we do with Crazy Frog says, what do we do with Fife? Now I know you currently have Fife, so I'll let you rant, but I got to lead this off by saying he's playing 100% goal square full forward. He's not playing any time on the ball so that we've seen so far. His role is basically one out. He's the benefit of Fife is that he's so good on when the ball hits the deck that he can obviously get goal assists and he can contribute to goals, not just be reliant on kicking goals. But I ultimately have a look at and go, last year he averaged 67, playing that role over 7 games. And yes, one of those was an injured games. And his scoring went up and down and up and down. And that's exactly what we're going to see this year. Do I think he averages more than 67? Yeah, probably. But maybe what, 8? I see 80. Like I can't see him going into the 90s and being an actual, making some real serious cash. And I don't know.
Yeah,
And and
I'll
consistently going 90, 90, 90.
yeah.
Like, that's
I'll
can't see
go.
it.
Like, I don't really like him in my side. I hate the rookies. I know a lot of people like Cheezel and Philip or whatever. The reality is they're still kids, unless because of McKay's injury, Cheezel ends up playing at halfback flank. But there's rumours Taron Thomas is going to play round one now too. So does now he come into a kind of thinking or whatever? But I just don't like the rookie side. That's the amount of money I've sort of got there. I don't have enough to get it to Horn Francis, who actually looks like he's got a more permanent midfield role. And even then,
Yep.
there's some reasons why I've got doubts with him. Um, like in a perfect world, I'd be with you with Tanner Bruin. If Bruin gets named for starters and named on the field against Collingwood, it's probably him. But I still don't. I'm not 100% sure with Geelong's full side if he is even named on the field. Is he even could be in the sub contention and that? Like he was awesome preseason. But Geelong have so many players. This guy's trying to come
Yeah.
into a premiership side where they've already tried to bring Bose, Henry. There's other guys on their list. Yeah, even like your Menegolas and stuff like that trying to get into this team. So there's no guarantee Bruin starts with the role that we want.
Or his sub, which would be
Sub,
even
which would be
worse.
awful. Flanders, we've talked about the issue there. Oscar Allen, if he wasn't, he's playing now North Melbourne without Ben Mackay round one. But if Darling was still there and he was F2, he was probably my more favourable option because I thought, he can get on some goals and that. But West Coast don't look great anyway. And then he's going to play forward in a team that I think is going to be bottom 4. So there's not really too many other options standing out. So I always like to be the more expensive guy that I can afford because it's much easier to go down. I do also like Fremantle's draw to start off with. Like after the
Yeah, they've got
Saints
a great
game,
draw.
it is
Yep.
North Melbourne and West Coast, Adelaide, Suns. So arguably, especially North Melbourne and West Coast at home, arguably two of the worst teams in the competition. So even him playing forward, like what did he get on the weekend? 90 and that, like there's no reason why he can't do that, if not more, a lot more
Yeah.
against like if North Melbourne still don't have Ben Mackay that round 2, and that ball's just getting pumped into that Fremantle forward line, like Fife could kick 6, and that it's not out of the question, and that like
Calm down. This
no, but
guy.
you know what I mean. Like Dusty's done it before. Like Dusty's done
Yeah,
it before.
no,
There's
I
stuff
get
like
what you're
that.
saying.
Yeah.
I mean, that
So
sort of leads me into another
where
question that we got here,
that's
which
where
is
I'm that's the thought at the moment. So that's where he's there at the moment,
yeah,
thinking if there's realistically if every other option kind of fails, it might be Fife's the last man standing. At least I know what he can do, but I'm
yeah.
not confident with it, and that's where I'd rather drop it to someone else. I'm just waiting for somebody else to put their hand up for me to go. I'm a much better option here.
That does bleed me into the next question, which was from the Duke, who also says, "Who is the best mid other than Laird, Took, Neil, Oliver, Bont, McRae, and Mills?" So basically, just take out all the top guys there. And so for me, leading into that would be Brayshaw because of that start. Like that is an absolute dream start. You can't. I think the first 5 games and what we saw with his averages last year is that, and we did this in the Frio pod. He averaged 123 against bottom 8 sides last year. So from that, and again, speaking to what we spoke about earlier, start getting onto guys that are going to go hot early so that when people are trying to trade into these guys by round 6, round 7, you're trying to trade into Brayshaw. He's already, he's now 650, but people are jumping on him because he's got a 130 average. And you're just like, well, I've already got him, so I don't need to do that. So do you have do you like I know a lot of people are on Parish. You've been hot on Cripps, but now maybe a little bit softer because of Walsh being rumored to be back a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I still
Where's
don't
your
think
view
Welsh
on that?
comes back
Kelly,
as
maybe?
well, like as early as what they're saying, pushing for round one. It just seems like from a personal point of view, being a Richmond supporter, I hope he's not out there naturally. But from a football perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably that's a short term view compared to probably the long term view they have to take with him. Like I do like Cripps because of that start. Like after we talked about the first couple of rounds, that's ridiculously soft, and we know he can go 140 on any given week, especially if he doesn't have the support around him. Yeah, I really like the Brayshaw. I've dropped off Parish, like that's
Yeah, so have I.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the Parish man, I think that's sweet. I know a lot of people on Jack Steele. I'm not as on that board as much. That so probably outside that, maybe left field might be Libba, um, just because
Yep.
there's potential there without. And I see he's popping up some teams with Dunkley now moving on, and
Yep.
Libba. We've seen they've tried him as a forward before, and it just doesn't work. He
No.
is that in and under midfielder.
And he also had
So
the high CBAs from the weekend. So, again, can't trust Magneto that much.
hmm,
But you'd have to say that, with Dunkley gone, they obviously need another inside ball there. Um, I think everyone got a slight bump outside of McRae. So, does that mean that Libba can go to that 110 plus range now, maybe 115 even potentially? I don't mind that.
he's one guy
If I
that
had to,
would not surprise me if he came out and started at
yeah,
120 and then starts to slow down as
yeah,
everything sorts itself out. There's usually a
which
couple of
generally
players
happens
like
with those
that.
guys.
So he's another one. And maybe the other one, just because I've heard that he's really worked hard improving his tank, is Will Brodie. And we just talked about the same thing with Brayshaw, with that absolutely incredible fixture to start off with. Brayshaw can be tagged. Now, he's obviously been trying to work hard through those tags and stuff like that. And we know how damaging he is, especially against lower end teams. So does like another club like what did he go against St Kilda last year? It was something stupid in his 2 day games where
Yeah, but his
his
PPM's just through the roof, right? And
through the
that's
roof.
that's
So is Ross Lyon, for example, round one going to let him go? It says he was 132 and 189 in his last 2 games against St Kilda. So
yeah,
how do you rock up to the press conference after you've let Brayshaw have 40 touches again,
yeah,
even though it's his first game back coaching, and that it's a hard question to justify. Like we backed our systems. You've got enough data to show this guy's torn you and you won the last 3-4 times he's played you.
yeah.
So I think a lot of people are thinking, well, if Brayshaw cops it, maybe Will Brodie doesn't. And could he with that sort of fixture and with that improved tank? Because that was the biggest thing with Brodie last year. And it was always the
Couldn't get
question
him on the
mark with
park
him.
enough.
What did he
Yeah.
play? Like stupid time on ground. Like it was under 70%, I think it
60,
was
63 or
something
64% or
like that.
something.
So
Yeah.
I believe he's like improved. So now he's in the 70s sort of guy that he might have to run a bit harder. So does that extra 10% bump, equate from going from that sort of, 100 guy? Could he get a run on it early with that fixture and maybe go 115 as a
Potentially
starting
as
point?
well.
So, and I've
I'd
seen him
probably
popping up in.
go, yeah. I mean, for me, I'd probably go one Brayshaw, two Kelly.
Yeah.
I don't mind the Kelly pick. I mean, I'm not sure he can average 36 disposals, but he looked bloody good on the weekend.
Mm,
And then three, I'd probably go Libba. I don't mind Brody as a pick left field because I mean what we see league wide is we see most people lowering their CBA attendances, most people lowering their TOG, whereas he had already had low TOG and centre bounce attendances because he couldn't get on the park.
mm.
So if he can increase it, he could be the only one bucking the trend. So it's
Yeah, so and
it's
that's
definitely
where we were
something to
talking
be
about like
considered.
Libba. There's a reason for Libba because they've got guys who can play more flexible, and Dunkley's gone big chunk
Yeah,
there. Where and then Brody, as we just said, so you're looking for somebody if you're going a pod and you just want to like I don't like being a pod for the sake of being a pod, but there is people that out there go, oh well, I'm happy to run one of these guys. There's got to be a reason for it. Don't just turn around and say I'm picking this player because I want to be different, and that give us and there's two reasons there. There is actually legitimate stats where these guys could go well, and we saw it in the practice match why they absolutely dominated. Now, the practice matches to real things is a completely different situation, but you look
yes,
at that figure, somebody like Brody again or Libba, if they were to get that start, and especially Brody, let's just say Brayshaw was the one that gets tagged. Brody comes out and goes 115, 120 for that first 6-7 weeks. And then everyone else is like, oh, hang on, we need to get this guy in. He's the guy this year. You're so far ahead of the pack because 2% started with him this season, and nobody else is on him. So they're the sort of players that you can get massively ahead. And I think there's, at least with them, there's probably lower risk. The only problem is you're spending, in particular Brody's point, like maybe 50 to 100,000 cheaper than one of those big dogs. But what happens if they just plot along that 105 sort of scoring, and that what do you do then? Unless you keep that money in the bank, or that money's been used to really balance out the points, but still, when do you pull the trigger then to go, okay, I have to move one of these guys up to an Uber?
You kind of get caught because they're not really an Uber premium, but they're not a mid pricer. So you can get caught holding them too long, and you just got to be. I think you got to treat them like a mid pricer, and that if they're just not cutting it, you just got to cut them, if that's the case. But for that reason, I'd probably almost rather get them as that sort of round 3 or round 4 guy that you just go to if they're just popping off, as opposed to start with them. But that's just my.
I have seen some people have sent me teams, which I will do a team review. And if you watch this before I've done that, feel free to DM me your teams. But I have already, as I was flicking through, a couple of people have got Libba, M2, Brody, M3. So for me, it's 1 on that. I don't think you can, it's too big of a risk to go 2, because you're kind of hedging your bet. You're like, okay, maybe one of them's going to go off. I'm not too sure which one. So I'm going to start both of them. And there's a lot more risk associated with that, where I think you choose the one where you're more confident with whatever you've seen or what you've heard, and that, and you back that pick in. So for us, for me, I have Brody probably ahead of Libba just because of the fixture, I think, and that improved time on ground and CBAs for him. It makes sense. And now Mundy's not there as well. So that's obviously going to change some of the CBAs and dynamic there. So I think there is an increase for Brody, where Libba Beveridge just scares me a lot. And that's why I'd have McRae locked in my team. He was in my first team pick,
right.
but I can't. I make the joke that how many, I'm happy to take a bet that Caleb Daniel does one ruck contest this year, and that, because that's how crazy Beveridge can get. It's not out of the realm that anything can happen for him. So that's where.
All right. So moving on. So Seeker 11th says that is a 1 primo defense too light on now, or too risky in. I think this one's a pretty easy one. I don't think it's necessarily too risky, but we've lost a lot of the security from all the extra rookies that we had. They just started dropping like flies. So, I mean, before we had Bose and we had Caulfield, and, we had quite a lot of these other rooks that were looking like they were going to start. Weddle as well. Chesser was going great guns and then had a really poor start. Now we've got the news that only one of Sincotta and Cowan's playing. Wilmot and McKenna are super underwhelming. Are they even on-field options? They don't really look to be. So for that reason, I'm leaning towards 2 premiums. With Yo at D3. I was hot on 1 premium and Yo at D2 for a long, long time. And now with all the value in the other lines, I kind of feel like you can sort of spread it out. I just don't like teams with the 1 primo now. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. And I even played around with when Dacos was flying, thinking, do I just even try just running Dacos there and that, and maybe with then go. But as you said, Bose, Caulfield was playing seconds. That wasn't promising. But Kenner, I watched get outrun. I said that with the Brisbane Geelong game twice. Geelong player ran past him, and he's known for playing for his speed. So, it's hard to transition back from playing, Gaelic football back into AFL and that. And he'll do reasonably well, but I'm not paying 160 set. That was probably the one I was getting most criticised for with one of my pods. Well, where's McKenna in your team? And that was my worry. A, what role is he going to be? And then B, what's his fitness back, playing AFL? It's a tough sport to play. So I think he's still good enough to probably get 50, but am I confident on a guy paying that much for a guy who's like, he's only going to get maybe 50? And then until he finds, and there's no guarantee with
how long ago did he play first? And wasn't he splitting kickouts at the time with Sard or something like that?
Yeah, stuff like that. So he had a much better role, and he didn't score that
exactly.
Great. He had one good year where I think he may have gone something and that. But I watch a lot of Essendon games because my partner for that. So
he's not getting kickouts at Brisbane. No chance.
Yeah,
not behind
right.
Rich
Essendon and they're very excited. Always been a very exciting team. Your Tips and McKennas, and they can all run and stuff like that. Where the conditions also probably don't suit him up at Brisbane. A lot of night games at this time of the year. Ball's a bit slippery on the deck and stuff like that. So yeah, that might have been even that him, losing footing and stuff while he was trying to sprint. And I don't know if that actually probably suits his game style first up. So yeah, there's just not enough rookies to be confident in.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
then most people have got, well, still a lot of people still have Dacos, but we talked about that. Like, how's he going to deal with the tag? We actually got to see it, didn't deal with it that well, and that so that kind of came, cut off with everyone. I think you're the like with me with waiting to see Ridley's role, bang on Ridley in my side. But I think if it's not, you're going one premium and Ridley, it's two premiums, and we've talked about that before.
Yeah, we
The
did. Yeah,
probably the big four because I've dropped Sinclair down further now. Your Sicily, Stewart, Dawson, Doherty. I don't care what
yeah.
order you have them in. We've got our own opinion on that. But you either need two of them or it's one with Ridley. I think it's the best, safest
And
option.
that sort of leads into another question that we've got here from Jake Sharp SC, who said Stewart and the 200k guy, or Ridley and Fife or Zeeble or Brun or whatever it may be. And I think we're both on that second train with the Ridley and the 200k forward rookie. You're looking at what, a Sheasel
Diesel.
or a Philippou or
Maybe
guys like that.
Pedler kind of came in.
Yeah,
I think.
none of them have good roles.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think the job security is there for Sheasel. Obviously, really high pick. They love him, but when he played forward, he's so damaging when he gets it and but doesn't get enough of it. When he plays behind it, which is not, I don't think he's going to be doing that much in an AFL game. To be honest, I think they've got enough guys that he uses down there that they don't need him behind the ball. But I haven't loved him behind it, but he knows how to get it, I suppose, which is a good thing for a super coach perspective. I'm not sold on that pick as a guy that's going to make enough money to be worth it, to be fair. But he's the only one that I really like, and that's saying something. So
I
I'm
talked to the
definitely of
centre
the
bounce
Ridley.
guys about the idea of maybe Thomas Cole down this if you wanted a more
Yeah, yeah,
defend,
yeah,
which he's going to be best 22 most likely. But then again, his scoring's never been great. Like, what's he, maybe 60s or whatever. But if you want
yeah.
somebody, maybe it's like that could improve because West Coast are going to see more ball
There's
down
just not
there.
enough free ball though, right? Like
That's the
he's not the
problem. Like,
designated
and it's
guy.
still like I even was tempted with Jaden Hunt, but he's just never he's shown it maybe one game at Melbourne when I think he played down there one time, but he's like they've definitely got him on that half back flank role, and they're going to see a lot of ball and stuff like that. But it's really hard to back in a guy that's never done it before, and you're like, oh, okay, this guy at 285, I'm banking to go 85 for a good period as well. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, no, Zeeble and just the idea that he can become a defensive option for you by round 6,
Yep.
all going
Totally
well
agree.
there. So that does, because that then you'd hope Yo's still going and making us cash and hopefully turning into maybe a keeper option down there. But or we're hoping either one of Yo or Z will become that. So
Yep.
yeah, if it's let's just say Wilmont or Sincotta or somebody like that after round 6, or even the idea that Zeeble, you don't need to move him straight down to defence straight away. Like you might have flick one of your forwards into the midfield, or we might just get
Yeah. There's
another
plenty of
rookie
options.
off. But Zeeble maybe round 7, round 8 becomes that option down there that flicks off then one of those defensive rookies, depending on how fat those cash cows are.
Yep.
So, but it does
Agreed.
give us some more flexibility there with moving our team around. Where I think your other option there was, one more premium in that rookie. Yeah, you've got to really bank on that rookie turning out the way it wants. And forward rookies, it's just the way it is. We saw it last year. I think Sheasel's a better version of Rochelle.
Hmm.
And obviously went slightly more higher. Rochelle kicked 5 early. Was it round 1 last year? I
Yeah.
can see
Got a big
she's
score.
maybe even doing that first grand West Coast. Maybe it's they like it could be going both ways. They might get really defensive and really scared about getting the 4 points. Maybe it's more because it's the fast deck. They just let them play and stuff. And maybe Sheasel gets on the end and kicks 5 and comes out and scores 100, 110 first game. But then what happens in 2 weeks later? And is it the same where Rochelle pumping out a 30 or something because again, even though Sheasel gets up the ground more, he's still a forward in a poor team. There's a reason why they got him at such a high pick because they are a poor team,
Yeah.
so you're relying on somebody that young finding his own ball 15 to 20 times and getting scoreboard impact. And yeah, that's a big ask for somebody who's by then playing his third, fourth game of footy.
Yeah. Agreed. Now I've got three more questions. So line them up. But the first one is pretty easy one. Which defenders in the 200 to 250k range are best 22 and have SC friendly roles? And really, I think we discussed this earlier. There's really only two, and they both play for the same team, which is Liam Jones and Hayden Crozier. And what we saw in the weekend, that Crozier looked great, but unfortunately, with the injuries to Durea and who else went down? Richards. Both went down early, and then he even went down later in the game and played limited time on ground. It was really unsure to see what sort of role he's going to be able to do. Um, is he getting kickouts because he was able to get that? I'm not sure. It's a real big question mark, and I think that Liam Jones, just with that interceptor role, obviously playing basically fullback, but is a very good interceptor. A stat came out today that he averages 3.2 intercept marks per game, which was league leading or something
Yeah,
like that.
number one since 2019 with Jeremy
Yeah,
McGuffin.
which basically to me just says, look, he's not going to be a light. He's never been great with his use, which is obviously the big knock on his game. But he's going to be able to get big scoring plays and points, which is going to tick along his score. So it keeps him, even if he's only getting your 50s to 70s or whatever it might be, that's fine. You're really just needing him to just make sort of 100K. He's probably not, he might not even make you 150K. Might make you 100K, get you to sort of that 330 mark. And then you can get, an underpriced premium with a one down, one up to someone around 500K, which should be easy enough to do. So I think those are the really your only two options. Obviously, Caulfield is another one there, but we don't know where Caulfield's at. It was listed as an emergency. He might not be ready, but he might be ready early in the season. I'm not sure if you want that as a downgrade option at 210K. I think he's 208K. So anything else to add there, or you pretty much spot
Yeah,
on there?
I was big on Jones. The moment I saw him in that first 5 minutes of the game, I'm like, oh no, he's straight into my team. Even if he's playing D2 or D3, it did look like they wanted him to sort of more zone off more. Josh Bruce didn't seem like he had that much of a clue what he was doing down there. So if he's playing down there, I think that's more lockdown than with Alex Keith, obviously the D1 lockdown gorilla there. But they all got the ability to intercept mark. But Liam Jones is last 5 years averaged between 66 and 77. So you know what you're getting from him. We really prefer it, obviously, in those 70s to get that 150K. But even at that sort of 66, it's going to be 100K. So at worst case scenario, it's not too bad. And even a couple of years ago, he threw in a really terrible 12, but then he had 147 because he got on the end of a lot of intercept marks and stuff. And that's the thing with an intercept marker, you always got the
You can just
chance
go
of the ball down
huge.
there, and that's what happened on the weekend against North Melbourne. They're bombing it in, a weaker team there, and just zoned off all day and that. So he's going to get a game there where he probably is going to go at 100, 110, and just that cash gen is going to fly. And then it doesn't really matter if he goes, a couple of games of 50 and stuff like that, because, he's making the money that we want him to do. We're really looking at him as that sort of 8-week option. He's not going to be a keeper for us, but intercept marks are, worth gold in Supercoach. So I think he's definitely pretty well should become like a locked in option for most teams at D4. The only other one I'd consider is Nathan Wilson from Fremantle.
Yep.
If you wanted a real, he's always had the
I
ability of
just
being
don't
a
know if
really,
he's best
really good kick.
22 with
That's the
Ryan coming
problem.
back.
Like
Yeah.
how Freo sort of set up if everybody's back. We know they've had a few injury issues and that, but crossing over from the GWS, he's always had the, and was he been at Freo now for 2-3 odd years? But the injuries have obviously, really hurt him. But he has been a guy that can go 75, 80. Does use the ball, can use the ball well, especially if he's out in space there, bringing it out a half back. So, yeah, 263K. It's not a terrible. If you knew that he was locked in that best defense, and that, I think you could do a lot worse than going Nathan Wilson. But yeah, is he best 22 is the problem.
Yeah, of course. All right. So one last one before we get to the actual last one.
And I
This one's
apologize because I think he said 200 to 250K, but
nah, it
cheating there.
doesn't.
But
I mean, look,
I'm cheating there by giving you an extra 13K option.
not really.
Yeah.
Which underperformers are you still considering from preseason matches? I think for me, I'm still probably still considering Tim English, even though I'm fairly certain on Wits. Yeah, he obviously didn't have the greatest game, but I can't. Even though he didn't have the greatest game, he still scored an 85. He's not going to be completely terrible. Um, that's one that I'm definitely still looking at. Outside of that, obviously, Cogs didn't have the greatest game, still considering him, but he's not currently in my team. There's just some guys that have just sort of come to the furore and taken over, or I was looking for specific things from these guys, and then I saw it, and then I went, okay, it's locked in. So, someone like a Ridley, for example, like I was looking at him all preseason as a guy that, if of the 500k guys, he's the one that I'm really hot on. If he gets the right role, because I think that he could even be the number one defender, which is just insane considering the talent that we've got in defense. Um, so a lot of those guys who did do that for me were fantastic. The guys that are sort of, I know that people are still looking in, say, a Jack Steele, thinking that was just a whatever, but he just doesn't look the same to me. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's anyone that I would say actually no. Here's the one, Cunnington. So a lot of people will look at Cunnington's score and say, I'm not picking Cunnington. He had 79 points. What they don't see is that he had 27 disposals. In the first quarter, he had a negative DT to SC ratio, like negative 20 or something like that. So he was always playing catch up. Didn't have a single tackle. Now, I don't know if anyone can tell me the last time that didn't have a single tackle. So he's running around in first gear, maybe second gear, racking up 27 disposals without a tackle and just going, oh well. And he had the second most CBAs. So just quietly, Cunnington slid under the radar of a lot of teams. So underperformed, but I'm heavily considering in my starting team.
Yeah, okay, so that's where mine in particular becomes like I've got Siebel Fife, we talked before, and I've really looked hard at going Cunnington Flanders or Cunnington Radigalia.
Yep.
Because I was looking at going, how can I ignore somebody who and he was kind of like, yeah, he butchered the ball a bit early, which is natural. You come back first game what he missed pretty well all of last season.
Yep.
You're going to be rusty at that. And it was a little bit of bruise-free football. Like, as we just said, like Lockie Jones took 11 marks and stuff like that. There was nobody was going in that game to get hurt. They were getting the moles in the legs and stuff like that. Come round one, Ben Cunnington's going bang in that midfield. He'll be tackling the first West Coast player that gets the ball, and that's how he plays. So yeah, I like even if he was to butcher it that much, and I don't know actually if he had that many clangers on the weekend and stuff, but it wasn't not as much of a contested game as it normally looked, and even like LDU's completely gone off a lot of people's radar because of his score on the weekend, and they're all back and that, but yeah, just watch that game, and it wasn't your normal contested positions. Actually, he ended up having 16. Here we go, Ben Cunningham, 16 contested positions, but he had 9 clangers.
Yep.
So that's obviously going to really affect your score. And that
I was watching him going, man, he looks good.
Tackles.
Man, he looks good. Man, he looks good. And then look at the score. I'm like, that's really reassuring.
Yeah.
That's great because a lot of people won't look into the stats. They'll just look at the 79 and go, oh, well, he's not an option.
Yeah, so
I personally think he's arguably the only
there we go.
guy.
Sorry, 4 clangers. I'm on the wrong side. It's 9 clearances, but 4 clangers. And then a free kick against 2. So that's my bad there. I was just looking at the wrong club. But still, with that many.
But I think his disposal efficiency was really poor, though.
Yeah, it was. What are we? 74%. So it wasn't.
That's
great.
actually pretty good.
Even, it's not too bad, but it's still like I'm going to gather. But that can also be judged differently too, depending if he's just completely like kicked down that forward line and just picked out Liam Jones compared to scrubbing a kick 20 meters, and it's a little bit different. But naturally, first game back, it was always going to be like that, and the Bulldogs did absolutely dominate them as expected. I'm just trying to find LDU here.
So it
was LDU had 6 clangers for that. So I knew he had a lot as well, and even he only laid the 2 tackles. So it was a lot of bruise-free football for that game. I'm just trying to look at total tackles for the match, 87. So it just was one of those matches, and I think if that's what I wanted to see. Like, can Cunnington get the ball? And he did.
Well,
like you could even argue
69% CBAs for Cunnington, which is way more than I thought that he would be
Mhm.
looking at this season. I thought it would be more like 50-50. But if he's getting 70% CBAs, what's he averaging? Like he could be 100 plus. Like,
Yeah.
so, I mean, at
Like,
his
even
value,
even Zeeble, like, I've heard some people going like that, and I personally thought it was probably an underperforming game with just the 15 touches, and I think he had a couple of clangers in that as well. So, you know, like, it wasn't the performance maybe people were looking for, but again, like, they were sort of like, okay, we'll go through the motions here, do what we have to do, and that, and but it's all about the role. So that's what we've talked about in the past, and that's what I was watching clearly. So Zeeble had his role, kick outs in that back line doing it. Cunnington playing CBA midfield. What else did I want to see? Finn Callahan around the ball while wing all day, good enough for me. I wanted to see Nick Dacos get tagged. He got tagged, and that how did it work out from there? Not what I wanted to see there. So Jack Steele, my issue there, a lot of people are like, oh, he time on ground and everything. It's kind of in first gear, which is true, but it was more how St Kilda played. So he has, the fact he could slim down and still get 9 tackles is a fantastic effort, and that
he
for,
still
from
got
him.
pushed off the ball by Will
But
Setterfield like it was nothing.
the problem with me, with that is, okay, the way they were playing through that ball movement, it's kind of was like St Kilda and Essendon had swapped game styles. Essendon a bit more precise with their ball movement. St Kilda were really rushing it through half back and through that midfield. Where last year I felt like Steele, and even a couple of years before that, he would be able to lead up and take a mark if it's not contested possession or one of those midfielders, sort of slow ball movement into that forward line and that. And yeah, they were definitely playing. It was a very un-Ross Lyon style of footy, because we always think Fremantle, how boring did they play? But remember, St Kilda didn't naturally play that way, and that they were a very good team around that 2010 period. Um, but Ross Lyon's big thing as a coach is, I'll use my players with their strength. So, Rowan Marshall, he's a natural ruck. He's playing in there.
Yep.
Maybe it's better. They've got like Max King if he's fit and firing. Now, obviously not here at the moment, but when he's probably putting that game plan in place, we've got a key forward one out. It's going to probably beat everybody. What do we need to do to get the ball up quick? If he doesn't get it, it's over the back. We've got Butler and Higgins. Like Higgins was getting goals out the back, left, right, and
Yeah.
centre, and that's his ability to do that. So they've got forwards that if the ball hits the deck and it gets in there quick, they can do some damage. So they've got to get that fast ball movement in. So that's what I thought of Sinclair and Steele. I was a bit worried about that because I think they need a more contested game style to get the best out of their scoring. So that they were probably the ones on the opposite, where the ones that probably stayed in my team. As I said earlier, I didn't think Yo played that well. He did look like probably struggled a little bit for fitness and everything, but he still stayed in my team, even though, well, he came back. I did take him out, but put him back in, even though it was kind of an underwhelming performance. But he didn't spend as much time on that time on field, probably just working him back in. And he did finish strong. That last quarter was strong by him. So that
Yeah. When
did give me a little
Setterfield
bit of
wasn't
promise.
playing on him.
And no, I was just talking about Yo. And that,
Oh, okay. Sorry.
yeah, so that's somebody who was like, even after an underwhelming performance, because I think that 78 or 80, what he ended up,
Yeah.
it
78.
was really poor halfway through third quarter, and he really kind of junked it up big time. But I do like the fact that a player can still junk it up when they're having a bad game. So yeah, that's kind of what I saw.
Nice. All right, last one, and this is pretty much going to be a summary because a lot of people have asked about Goulden, and so I suppose this was a little bit fitting to sort of go with this. But the question is Goulden a trap? Now, I think he might. I don't think it matters if he is or he isn't because of the price point. Because it's quite easily to have 30 grand to go up to three other guys or 50 grand to go up. It's not necessarily that. It could have been a trap when he was in 4% of teams, but now that he's in 24% of teams, it mitigates the risk to be able to pick a guy like that because the upside's huge, while the downside is just you sideways into another guy in round 3, right? So I don't think it's so much a trap, but it's not necessarily a must-have pick either. It's a guy that can hurt you if you're not on him, but you can also get on him pretty efficiently. Like if he goes big in rounds 1 and 2, you're probably going, say, a Cogs or a Taranto down to him anyway. So what's the worst that can happen? Is he, it costs you a trade if you don't have him. Worst that can happen the other way is it costs you a trade if you do have him. It's not a huge trap pick like say a Whitfield of old or a Kelly who does a um, pulls the soft tissue and then for the next 6 weeks is in and out and in and out in and out. Like those are trap picks. I can't see this hurting people that bad that it's going to go that good or that bad for anyone either way. So for me, it's not. But what are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, to me, a trap is, as you said, with the injury. If they're injury prone, of that, and that's where I was warning off people, say picking Took before, or it's if you there's no obvious person to go to. So somebody's like, okay, maybe a cheaper ruck like Draper. What's the full part of going Draper? If you've got Radicalia as your R2 and that, where do you go from there? There's no one to move to. Goulden, as you said, if you're somebody who keeps a bit of cash going in the season, it's really easy to get up to Taranto or say that's the option you are fighting between. For me, if I don't start Cunnington, it's straight away I make 60k. Just go down to him if Cunnington's the one performing and that's where I've sort of been balancing going. Or do I not start Cunnington and just he's the backup in case one of these forwards don't perform? And then if Cunnington doesn't perform as well as that, well, it's fine. I've made the right choice there. So yeah, a trap only becomes a trap if there's nobody to go to. And that's where I think we've always talked about those mid-price options. At least this year, it's a lot easier because, like the forward line we were talking before, like if I go in Fife and Bruin goes off, well, it's a straight swap. It's fine and that. Even if like we go in Setterfield or or there's a Hopper or something, there's still Sheed and Horn Francis and Warple and there's multiple guys. Yo maybe is probably a little bit more, but that's the harder one because there's no one obvious to side swap him to, but everybody's on him, so it doesn't become a track because of the ownership percentage. So yeah, you're right, and this is where we said before about the pod situation with say Brody or Libba or one of them. We're not as confident maybe with a Tom Mitchell or one of those blokes. Probably at least there's still Tom Green below if you weren't starting them. But let's just say you went Chad Warner or again one of those 480 guys in the midfield. There's nothing unless you're going way below. There's nothing to obviously might not be to swap to. So that's where you get yourself in trouble, especially if there's no ownership. I'll give a shout out to my wife here. She was on the Essendon pod, replaced you that day. So she had Goulden in before the first practice match and was giving me updates because I didn't watch a lot of the Sydney-Brisbane game. She's like, I told you, get on Goulden. So naturally I put him in and then, he exploded again for the second time. So well done, honey, on beating everyone
Good
on that.
stuff.
But it means absolutely nothing because everybody's jumped on now.
Well, I think the overwhelming theme of what we've sort of gone through today in this mammoth pod, and I hope you guys, if you're still here, congratulations, is you need to be quick to react at the end of the day. All these mid prices and great picks that everyone's looking at and getting on, that's fine. But this season more, and last season obviously, but you need to be quick to react. The early season trades to stabilize your team, get the right decisions and picks in, are going to be crucial to set you up long term. So if Goulden doesn't end up being a pick, you need to get off him really quickly. If Setterfield doesn't end up being a pick, you need to get off him really quickly. And none of this waiting until round 5 to start, doing sideways trades or using boosts at that point to do that, etc. You need to be precise and direct with your trades as quickly as you can. Once you identify that they don't have the role or if it comes out in round 1 that Goulden's only getting 25, 30% CBAs, and he's playing mostly wing and his scoring is capped, get off him because he needs probably 40 to 50% to be a viable option as a permanent keeper. Those are the sort of things that you'll wear. Now, luckily for everyone listening to this podcast, they'll have us to tell them that. So that's a good thing. But
no different to housing markets, shares, crypto, you name it, and stuff like that. It's those who, if you jump on before everyone else and it works out great, and then you're ahead of the game and that. And if it fails miserably, then obviously, you find yourself in trouble on that. But the more people that are on with you, it does lessen the blow, but then you don't get the rewards. And that's where I know people talk to us about, is it worth jumping on a pod? And that's where I always think it's better to try to stay with the crowd as much as possible earlier on, because I think that's what ruined me. So out of my last 4 years, I think I've been the top 1,000. The last 5 years I've been the top 1,000 4 times and inside the top 500, 3 of them. But the 1 year I wasn't, I think I was on Matt Crouch and Rory Sloan as pods. Nobody else was on them, and they both go down within the first 3 weeks. So bang, everybody, there was players that, because there's always rookies come round 3, and that's the first time we're really using our 2 trades. Correction trades that there's some rookie or some mid-pricer that we haven't jumped on that we have to jump on. But if you're using trades to correct because you're on a pod that gets injured or has really underperformed, and you've got to correct that while everybody else is doing corrections for somebody, you might miss that player that's going to go up 80K that week. So usually you want to try to stay with the pack as much as possible. 1-2 pod differences in your starting team, fine. So where you really jump up is then with those trades as the season goes on and making them at the right time and the jump on them. So good in the start, no problems at all. But as Chris said before, and that if for whatever reason he fails those first couple of weeks, and that bang, you've got to move him on. If it was a failure like, and I'm not saying necessarily, he comes out and scores a 75, but all the roles fine. That's fine. Players have bad games, and I think too many people jump off because of that. But let's just say he's only still got his 10% CBAs because Mills and Parker and Rowbottom are all in there, and that then it's like this guy doesn't actually have this role. Bang, jump off, find the guy that does have the role. So that's where it's important.
Absolutely agree. That wraps us up, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thanks for all your lovely questions. Obviously, hit us up on all of our social platforms at SE Insider 100 for all Supercoach related content. As I said, we are going to be pumping out more and more and more as preseason comes to a close, and then we look forward to the almighty start of round 1. It's next Thursday, right? I think.
Yeah, I'll be there. MCG, bring it on.
Nice. But thank you very much, guys, and we'll catch you again next time. Cheers.